Hi guys! So this is going to be your Bibimbap 101. Bibimbap is a great Korean dish to make for a potluck because each ingredient needs to get all mixed into a big bowl, and you don't have to feel pressured about your cooking. We'll put a bowl, put rice in the middle, and then all the different ingredients. Then you mix it all up. So if your ingredient doesn't taste that great, we won't know if it's yours or if it's someone else's. So if this is your first time making bibimbap or a part of the bibimbap, I hope this helps you feel a little less nervous about making it. So there is no really a set rule to bibimbap other than that it includes rice, beef, and veggies. But we don't live in traditional Korea anymore, and finding ingredients is also a problem. So I'm going to try to include veggies that are traditional, colorful, and will still bring that Korean spirit. But if it's an ingredient that's very difficult to find here in the States, I will pass on it. Now, because this is a video for a potluck party, I wanted to give a little guidance on how much food to bring. This pan is one of those half-size foil pans that you get from Costco. I guess you can really get it anywhere. They have the big ones, and then you put two of these inside the big ones, and then you can put the whole thing in one of those wire thingies with the butane on the bottom to keep it warm. Depending on how long the party is, we might not have to keep it warm, but this is a good size for your ingredient. It will feed between 20 to 30 people. So let's get started. We're going to begin by making rice. This is a cup that came with my rice maker, and one full cup is 1 cup of rice. I have here 8 cups of rice because that's the maximum that will fit in this pot. I have already rinsed this once. This is my second rinse. I like to rinse it 3 times. So you give it a nice rub as you're getting the running water through as well as you can. Rub it out. You can rub it with 2 hands, but I just do it this way. Pour all the water out and then do this 3 times. The kind of rice that you want for this dish is Japanese sushi rice or Korean short grain rice. You do not want sweet rice, not because it's sweet, but because sweet rice is actually too sticky. And you don't want jasmine or basmati long grain rice because they won't be sticky enough. Now this is done rinsing. We're going to pour all of this water out and start filling it with water. I rinsed this 3 times, and now I'm going to fill it all the way up to the number 8 line that you see inside the pot. And of course, if you're making 10 cups of rice, fill it up to line number 10. You can also put your hand in like this, and the water line should come up to about your knuckles as an indicator. To be more scientific, the rice to water ratio is about 1 to 1.1. This process will be the same with all rice makers. I have just this old 30-year-old rice cooker that I've been using for 30 years. Just stick it in. All this does is keep the rice warm and cook. And I set it to cook, and it'll cook. About 20 minutes later, it's going to be done. And what you want to do when the rice is done, you don't want it to sit there. You do have to fluff it out like this. And you want to go all the way to the bottom of the pot and turn that rice up and fluff it. You want to do this as soon as the rice is done making and not let it sit there for an hour before you do this. Why? Because my mom said so. A few of these ingredients can be done a night or two in advance. Soybean sprouts are one of them. Just make sure you're using soybean sprouts and not mung bean sprouts. Here I have a 15-ounce bag, which is just short of a pound. You'll need about four of these to fill one of those half-foil pans from Costco I mentioned, and they'll feed 25 to 35 people. These are not difficult to make. It's one of the simpler ones to make. First, you want to bring water to a boil, and you're going to be adding a little bit of salt to the water. I'm not really sure why you do that. I don't think that salt is enough to really give the soybeans any taste, but that's what I was taught, and that's what I do whenever I boil vegetables. Put a little bit of salt. And depending on the size of your pot, I probably should have done this one package at a time, but I decided to do two, and that pot was a little too small for it. I was trying to save time here by doing everything at once, especially because I was cooking all the ingredients. But in retrospect, it might have been, oh my goodness. Okay, I did a third bag. Not a good idea. I should have done just one bag at a time. It will cook more uniformly overall. So if you're just doing this ingredient, it just might be better to do one bag at a time instead of trying to smush three bags in that little pot like I did. See how much I had to keep on stirring that thing to make sure that it was cooked uniformly? This was dumb. Anyway, all you really want to do is bring this back to a boil and let it cook enough so that it's not crunchy anymore. Because I didn't listen to myself, I had to keep going back there and stir and stir. This is a little test, and see that breaking? That is not ready yet. Then we try it again, and this one is a little bit more bendy. Ooh, that was hot. A little bit more bendy, and that's good, but there's still a little bit of crunch. And actually, if I dig in inside and pick another one up from the bottom, I will see that it's a little bit more ready. And I'll show you when it's all ready. Like that one. See how bendy that is? Even if you squeeze it, it won't break. So now it's ready. This is ready to go. Historically, if you see the little roots at the bottom, moms would sit and break off all the roots for each individual sprout before cooking it back in the days. I don't do that, but they used to do it. And my mom would tell me that I would have to do it. I just don't listen to her. I've sort of convinced myself that all the nutrients are at the root. I mean, once it's all done, you want to drain the sprouts. Um, Now, here again, this is difficult because I just put too much in that one little pot, and my strainer is also kind of small for that. But if you just do one at a time, this would be a lot easier. Anyway, so I am rinsing. Yeah, do one at a time. Anyway, so it is hot. So what I'm doing here is dumping all the hot water out so that I can handle it when I rinse. Be careful and don't hurt yourself. It gets pretty boring here, but I'm basically rinsing this out now. So I'm gonna double up the speed. And while I'm washing it, I did want to say you want to rinse this about three times. And I say three times because that's how I've been taught. But look at it. If you think it needs more than three rinses, go for it. If it needs less, hey, that's okay. And then if you have all of these little heads left, if they fall off, Don't try to save them, just toss them. They're okay. We don't need them. And I continue on and I do rinse this again. Like I said, I give them a good 3 rinses, but we're going to skip ahead because we don't need to see all that. But before we finish off the rinsing, I want to show you. See how bendy this is? You can squeeze the top and it will not break. And this is how much you want to cook it. But you also don't want to overcook. So don't let it sit there for too long. Then it will lose all of the water and then it'll just become stringy and it won't be good anymore. So just as soon as it's no longer bendy, take them out of the pot and rinse them. In cold water, by the way, cold water. And you don't want this dish to become watery, but with this one, you don't have to squeeze any water out. Just let it sit in the strainer for about 2 hours. And then we're going to dump them all into a big bowl so we can give them a little bit of seasoning. The only seasoning you need with this is garlic and salt. I'm using garlic powder because I think when I was making this, I ran out of fresh minced garlic. But if you have fresh minced garlic, for 4 bags, you want to put about 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. You don't need more, or about as much powdered garlic as I put. And then that's salt. And you also want to put some sesame oil, just a dab. But if you are doing this the night before, skip the sesame oil and add it in on the day you are going to eat it. It's not good to put sesame oil the night before. And then give it a nice rub so all of the seasoning gets mixed in well. This soybean sprout dish is a good dish or a good side dish, banchan, that you can eat with Korean meals. Ta-da! But if you're making it as banchan, you want to add more seasoning to it. So, like a little bit of fish sauce, a little bit of soy sauce, in addition to what we just put in there would be good. But remember for bibimbap, all of your ingredients want to be a little bit muted because they will come together with everything else and everything will have seasoning. So you don't want everything to be like that, have a perfect balance on its own. You want them to be balanced all together at the end. So we're doing a little less seasoning than we normally would for panchan. And once you're done, put them in an airtight container and it can sit in the fridge for 2 days. And then on the day of, just make sure you put a little bit of the sesame oil. You're done. Another dish that can be made up to 2 days in advance and will be a cold dish is spinach. Just make sure you buy the spinach with the stems, like this, and not your salad spinach leaves. These will shrink a lot when you blanch, and if you don't buy the stems, you will have like nothing left. So it's better to buy it with the stems on. Do not buy these Ceylon spinach. I got this at an Asian market because they didn't have a different type of spinach. But these stems were super thick, not like the regular spinach. And they worked okay, but I had to throw out a bunch of those stems because they were just too big. And even the rest, it was still very thick. But back to the regular spinach, you want to put a pinch of salt again to the boiling water. And you're just going to blanch this. Put the stems in first because they will need to be cooked a little bit longer. But really, all you're doing is letting it sit there until it gets blanched and then take it out. You're literally leaving it there for less than 1 minute. bunches of the spinach will feed about 20 to 30 people, but it will not fill up a whole pan of that Costco size foil pans. Um, so if you're bringing this dish, you might want to just do 5 or 6 bunches of spinach and fill up one foil pan. And we won't really need two. One should be enough. And once you've blanched them, you dump out the hot water and then give it a nice rinse with cold water. Again, you want to do this 3 times. Give it a good rinse 3 times. Or sometimes, depending on where you get these, some of these spinach have a lot of sand in them. And if it is very sandy, you might need to rinse them more than 3 times to get all of that out. So play it by ear and use your judgment to get it nice and clean. Now, for me, the hardest part of this dish is this part. You have to squeeze all the water out. Like, really squeeze it. Give it a nice squeeze. A salad spinner will not do it. You do literally have to squeeze so that it comes out fluffy. The thing is, this will still put out water, but you really don't want this dish to have liquid in it when you're serving. I think they do have like a machine that squeezes water out like this. I think in Korea they sell it and they call it 짤순이, but I've not seen it in the States. They might have it. I don't know. I haven't really looked for it. I don't do this very often. And so when I do it, I just do it. But don't do it in too big bunches. Just take a little bit at a time and then squeeze, because when you do too much at a time, you're not going to be able to squeeze enough out all at once. So this is the hardest part of this dish. But once all the water is squeezed out, we are now ready to season this. You do want to give this a nice little fluff like this because you have smooshed everything. So we'll fluff it all back out to give a little volume and get it ready to get seasoned. And here I have 3 bunches of spinach, blanched and squeezed out. And we're going to season it by putting some soy sauce, which is mainly what gives it flavor. And then we're going to put sesame oil. Just remember to put your sesame oil on the day of instead of 2 days before. It just does not stay fresh overnight. And then add some sesame seeds. You can skip the sesame seeds if you don't have these. And then give them a good mix. That's all you really need. Except, I forgot, you really do need garlic. So get some of that fresh minced garlic. And we're going to add about 2 teaspoons here. You don't need a lot, but really basically all you really need is minced garlic and soy sauce. Sesame seeds are a bonus, and sesame oil, you only want to put that on the day you serve. As you mix this, remember to continue to fluff. Now, if you have 4 bunches of spinach, do not add more seasoning than I did. The amount of seasoning that you saw me put on this video is going to be enough for both 3 bunches or 4 bunches. It's very estimate, but you don't really want this to be too flavorful on its own. So a little less is okay. And this is what the final outcome looks like. You can store this in an airtight container again for up to 2 nights. And this dish is served cold. Another dish that is served cold is radish. This is a Korean radish. Some people call it Japanese radish. but actually the Japanese daikon radish, they're they're skinnier and longer. The Korean radish, these are like shorter and stubbier. To be honest, I think you can use either one. I do prefer to use the Korean one because this is a Korean dish. And I feel that the Korean radish is a little bit firmer than the Japanese daikon, the longer ones that I've seen. They're not as firm as these guys, but it's a very slight difference. And if you can't find this one, use the other one. That's okay. This is a medium-sized radish, and I would need about three of these to fill up one of those Costco foil pans. So to get started, what you would do is first off, you want to peel the peel off and then give it a nice good rinse. And after I rinse it, I would pat dry it and then cut it in half. Now, this dish will need a mandolin slicer, or at least I need a mandolin slicer. This is the one that I use. And I'm using the medium sized serrated knife. They do have the thicker version, but the one that I'm using right now is not the thinnest, but the medium sized one. If you can achieve the same look as I can get with this mandolin by slicing them by hand, go for it. You can also use a julienne slicer, or maybe even a food processor. The food processor will make shorter slices though, so I prefer to use the mandolin slicer to make these slices like these. They they need to be a little bit longer. You don't want them to be half this size, but about this length. So I'm gonna be doing this for the rest of the radish. If you're using a mandolin slicer, be careful at the ends because it's very easy to hurt yourself. And use the tool, that little tool that you can use for the ends of the veggies. And then, like, throw out the little tiny piece at the end or eat it. This is what the final outcome should look like. And go ahead and fluff it out a little bit. Separate all the pieces out and get it ready for seasoning. I have 2 radishes here, but if you are doing 3, this is still the same amount of seasoning you want to use. That was vinegar just now, and these are Korean chili flakes, and they're supposed to give it a nice color and they're spicy, so don't go too crazy with this. This specific powder that I'm using is one of the milder ones, and that's why I'm using so much, but you don't have to use that much. This is a little bit of fish sauce. Each circle that I make is about 1 tablespoon. So about 2 tablespoons of fish sauce and 3 of vinegar. Now this radish wasn't very sweet, so I'm adding a little bit of sugar. But if your radish has some sweetness to it, you don't really need to add sugar. No Korean dish is complete without garlic. So this is some fresh minced garlic. If you don't have pre-minced garlic, go ahead and chop up some garlic. Maybe this is about 2 cloves. And then give it a good mix. Nice mix. So to recap, 3 vinegar, 2 fish sauce, half for 1 sugar if needed, and 2 garlic. That's all you need. You can store this again I think you can store this for up to 4 days. And this is another dish that is served cold, so one of those that can be pre-made. Okay, we're moving from cold to warm dishes now. These would be preferably cooked on the day of, but if you are in a pinch and you don't think you'll have time, it's okay to make them the night before. This dish here is dried mushroom. I have black fungus. They're also called ear mushrooms because the whole ones are roundish and look a little bit like an ear. Some people call it wood ear mushrooms, but I can't read the label anyway because this is in Chinese and I got this at a Chinese grocery store. You can get them at most Asian stores and they look like this. They're black. These are pre-sliced and these will make it a lot easier for you to work with. If you get the whole ones, you'll have to rehydrate and then cut them to this size, which is going to be a lot of work. I recommend just getting the shredded ones. They are like chips when they come out of the bag, and then we need to rehydrate them. Don't use cold water, but tepid water, not quite warm, not quite cold. Hey, they're like water from Laodicea. And then when you soak them, you want to soak them for about 30 minutes. You can soak them longer. It really depends on how dry they are. So look at them after 30 minutes and see how malleable they become. I'll show you in a bit what they should look like. If you can't find black mushrooms, you can also use the shiitake dried mushrooms or just regular fresh mushrooms. But these, I think, have the best neutral taste with a nice texture to it that works really well for bibimbap. Traditionally, shiitake mushroom is what went in the Korean bibimbap dishes, but those are more expensive and they have a very distinct flavor that kind of could become overwhelming. So I really like these black mushrooms. And when you soak them for about 30 minutes, they will be ready to be cooked. Oh, and by the way, they will stink. I don't know what it is about these, but they stink when you put them in the water. But don't worry, they're not gone bad. You just wash them out and then they won't stink anymore. And this is how they should look like. If your mushrooms are not like this after 30 minutes, just soak them longer. It's okay to soak them as long as you want, for several hours or even overnight for these mushrooms. You don't want to do that to the shiitake mushrooms. The shiitake, you might have to soak them for an hour or two, but you don't want to soak them for overnight because it will take away a little from the flavor that it has. These mushrooms don't really have that strong of a flavor, so it's okay to soak them for as long as you need to. And then, like I said, they kind of stink for some reason after the soaking, and I like to give them a good rub and rinse them out until the water comes out clear. I want to say rinse them 3 times, but depending on how you feel, you might want to even rinse them more than 3 times. When you're done washing, just let it sit in the strainer for about 30 minutes. Once most of the water has drained, we will be stir frying these. I used avocado oil. I try not to use olive oil in these because olive oil has a specific fragrance that I don't like in my bibimbap. You can use sesame oil or avocado oil or any of the oils that don't carry a very strong taste, like canola oil, vegetable oil, but don't use coconut oil and don't use butter or ghee. You want your heat to be on medium high so that you can do this on high heat and pretty fast. And now I'm just waiting for the skillet to get hot. You don't want to start it when it's cold. Wait until it's hot. And when you add the mushrooms, you hear that sizzling sound. So you want it to go right into the hot oil. I did overcome the temptation to try to do all these mushrooms at once. It's best to give a little room so you can actually stir fry. I just added a little bit of soy sauce and I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder. I do like to use garlic powder for this dish instead of actual fresh garlic, so the end result is nice and clean. If you're making this dish for a large party of friends, it's good to use the tamari soy sauce, the gluten-free version. That way, this dish can be gluten-free. Then continue stir frying on medium-high heat for about 4 to 5 minutes. This is a very forgiving dish. If you undercook a little bit, it's okay. If you overcook, it's not going to get tough. It'll be fine. So give it a nice stir frying for about 5 minutes and it will be good. Oh, and the amount of mushroom you see here is 2 bags. Remember that when you rehydrate these mushrooms, they will expand, unlike the spinach and the bean sprouts from before, which will shrink. These will expand when rehydrated. So 3 bags will be plenty to fill up one of those foil pans from Costco. In fact, depending on how dry these mushrooms are, when you rehydrate them, you might even get away with just 2 bags. So just experiment, try 2 bags, see if they fit. If it looks like it will, then you're good. If it looks like you need a little more, go for another half a bag. Up to you. Next ingredient that we want to use is the zucchini. You can use any kind of zucchini. I just got these from Aldi. And I'm going to show you 2 ways of cutting these. The way I'm cutting them right now is cutting them into quarters and then slicing them. This would be the best way to cut them if you don't have a mandolin slicer. Since I have a mandolin slicer, I'll show you how I do it in there. But this is about the size that you want these to be at. And then, if you have a mandolin slicer, use the thick version of the serrated knife. The thin one that I use for the radish is too thin for the zucchinis. You want these to be a little bit bigger. So for these, I use the thicker version. Always remember to use that end piece tool. I've done it, I've spliced it, it's not pretty. And this is about the size that you want them to be. If you don't have a mandolin slicer and want to julienne them like this by hand, by all means go for it. I would not use a food processor to do this, just because it will probably destroy the zucchini rather than make it pretty like this. Once you have it all sliced up, whether you have them julienne like this or sliced into slices like the first version, for one of those foil pans, you would need about 8 pounds of zucchini. But do test it out. You can cut them as you go, see if they fit into your pan. After that, you just want to stir fry them real quick in medium-high heat with some oil in the pan. And again, you want to not use olive oil, but any other oil like avocado oil, grapeseed oil, peanut oil, something that doesn't have a very strong scent. And also no coconut oil. This Oh yeah, take a little coffee break, guys. I'll play and wait, I'll work and they'll play something something, right? Wait, you will stir fry this for about 3 minutes and sprinkle some salt. You don't need a whole lot, just a little bit, and that's it. You really don't need anything else for this dish except this. And this dish you want to do on the day of. If you store it overnight, it will sweat even in the fridge, and then you'll have liquid sitting there, and it just won't be as good unless you do it on the day of. I'm multitasking here, so I'm stir frying and then gonna start doing bulgogi at the same time. I'll come back to bulgogi later, but zucchinis, this is it. Quick stir fry, little salt. This dish is a little less forgiving than the mushrooms. So if you're going to err on the side of undercooked. You don't want to overcook it because then it'll just get mushy. Now we're on to the carrots. I think this is the last ingredient other than the bulgogi. We're gonna peel off the carrots and prep them, julienne them, and then stir fry them. And that's it. This is another very simple dish to fill up your Costco half pan foil pan. You need about 8 pounds of carrots. Once you're done peeling them, give them a good wash, set them down, pat dry or let it dry. And then we're gonna cut off the tops. And after that, we're going to julienne them. I'm gonna be using my mandolin slicer. And for the serrated knife, I will be using the medium size, not the big ones like the zucchini. Um, Carrots are firmer, so it will hold its shape a lot better. So definitely use the medium size. You can also use a food processor for this one if you have the julienne disc. Carrots are much harder, and so I don't recommend them for zucchinis, but for carrots, go all for it. When you have a little piece left at the end, don't try to julienne slice them. Just eat them or save them for veggie stock. This is about the size that you want them to become at. And when you're done, this is what it'll look like. I have less than 8 pounds here because I wasn't feeding so many people, but this is, I think, a good 5 pounds. So about 2/3 of what you will be needing. And I stir fry them again in a wok with no olive oil and no coconut oil, but avocado oil, grapeseed oil, vegetable oil, canola oil, all of those would work. Wait until the pan is hot before you drop them so that sizzling sound comes through. Do them in batches, don't try to overdo them. A little bit at a time is good. And all you really need for carrots is also a little bit of salt. Just sprinkle a little bit of salt and then stir fry. And that's it. And you're going to stir fry them about 5 minutes until they become just a little tender, not too wilty. And it's better to undercook than to overcook. This is also a dish that is nice if you can do on the day of because it's not a cold dish, but you would like it to be warm. However, if you do it the night before, it's okay. This will not sweat and it will not create liquid if it needs to sit on the refrigerator for a day. And then you can just warm it up before you bring it out. So you can see the end result is not quite wilty and not quite stiff. Beautiful. So here are all the ingredients that we have talked about today. Spinach, radish, the mandu I did not talk about, but that doesn't go on the bibimbap. That's a side. Then we have eggs I didn't talk about, the sauce I didn't talk about, and the bulgogi I did not talk about. But I figured everybody knows how to make eggs. We're just making over easy eggs. And then if you have a broken egg, you can always make them over hard. There are some people who don't like eggs over easy, their yolks runny, so they can grab the ones that have gotten broken, and everybody else can grab one with runny yolks. And when you put them together, this is what you do. You put a little bit of rice down, and then you put all the other ingredients in a circle around the rice. And as you see this getting put together, you see that it why we did them this way. We use different colors for the ingredients, and it makes it so pretty, so colorful. And then when you bring them together, they taste so good. So we're going around with spinach, the radish, soybean sprouts, the mushrooms, and then these are carrots and zucchini. And then I left a little room to add some of the meat, which if you're vegetarian, you can just skip. Some people like to put tofu, but we don't really need tofu. We can do this dish without it, and it'll still be a vegetarian dish. And then for the soy sauce, I use tamari soy sauce, so it's going to be gluten-free. For the red sauce, I also use gluten-free gochujang, so it'll also be gluten-free. This is how it looks, and then you have to top it off with an egg. I prefer the runny yolk so that when you go in there and mix it up, the yolk kind of runs into the rice and makes a nice creamy texture. The sauce has a little bit of a kick, but you put it on and then mix everything up and then eat. Bibimbap.